Results of the recorded votes are as follows: 24 in favour, 9 against, 14 abstentions. Draft Resolution A/HRC/S30/L1, entitled Ensuring Respect for International Human Rights Law and International Humanitarian Law in the Occupied Palestinian Territory, including East Jerusalem and in Israel, as orally revised, is therefore adopted.
All right, well, Toby Cadman is an international human rights lawyer, and he joins me live now from Pristina in Kosovo. Toby, thanks for joining us on the programme. UN officials there, some UN officials are in no doubt, but in your expert opinion, have war crimes been committed here?
Absolutely. I think that what we've heard in certainly the last few days is a very change in the position which is being advanced by the international community. I think we're seeing a very different response to the situation in the occupied territories than we've seen for a very long time. I think that, as the UN Human Rights Commission has said, despite Israel making the statement that these were military targets, no evidence has been forthcoming. And of course, if no evidence is presented as to these being military targets, this is indiscriminate targeting of civilian areas and civilian buildings, and of course, it doesn't take an international lawyer to draw the conclusion that war crimes are almost certainly happening.
Right. So if attacks on civilians clearly break the laws of war, international laws, then why is accountability so hard to achieve in this conflict?
Well, that's unfortunately that's the million-dollar question. I think the difference now from what we've seen previously is that this is now within the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. Of course, we now have the UN Human Rights Council deciding to launch an international investigation into it, but arguably that's not even necessary. You've got the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. The prosecutor has been given jurisdiction to investigate, and now she has to investigate. I mean, as we're seeing, 254 people killed, nearly 2,000 people injured. I mean, this is a matter of the greatest gravity that the prosecutor now has to launch an official investigation into.
Right. So what do you think could be achieved then through an investigation and a subsequent inquiry?
Well, holding individuals accountable, bringing charges against political and military leaders for having committed war crimes and crimes against humanity. I mean, and not just looking at the attacks in Gaza, but what we've seen in the settlements, what we saw recently in East Jerusalem that led up to the Israeli attacks in Gaza. I mean, these are all matters that are within the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. And whilst Israel has said they don't recognize the ICC and will not cooperate, arguably that doesn't matter. It doesn't prevent the prosecutor from doing it. We're going to see a new prosecutor, the British barrister Karim Khan, starting in a matter of weeks, and this is going to have to be one of the first things he has to confront.
We heard there just from our correspondent in Gaza that Palestinians living in Gaza don't hold much hope that this will change anything for them on the ground. But do you think that there is a shift in the way now that the international audience views Israel and perhaps their treatment of Palestinians?
Absolutely, I think there is a change, and I certainly have spoken to Palestinian colleagues over the last few days and the last couple of weeks, and of course there is this sense of frustration that nothing changes, that we're looking, decade after decade, the Palestinians being targeted in such a way. So there is this sense of absolute frustration, but I think that what we're seeing on the international level is now very different. Israel continues to accuse every organization that targets it, whether it's the International Criminal Court or the UN, as biased and anti-Semitic. I mean, this is not anti-Semitism. This is ensuring that individuals who commit crimes on both sides are held accountable. And that's what we have to move forward to now. We can't just allow another international investigation to make a statement of condemnation. It's way past that. We now need to ensure that people are charged for war crimes.
OK. All right, Toby, thanks so much. Toby Cadman there, international human rights lawyer, joining us from Pristina.